Hello friends, my name is Nick and this week's plant of the week is Aglaonema chocolate. Chocolate being a very fitting name for this houseplant because it's absolutely luscious. The common name for Aglaonema being Chinese evergreen, chocolate is the more specific variety. And I'm just obsessed with this houseplant overall. It's got such a gorgeous appearance with the pink pinstripes, the dark leaves, and the purple undersides with those pinstripes showing through. I think it's absolutely fabulous and quite different from many of the other Aglaonemas or Chinese evergreens that you are most often going to run into at your local houseplant stores and nurseries. And this one, I think it is a total lookalike for the infamous Calathea ornata, or the pinstripe prayer plant, which also sports those beautiful pink pinstripes, the dark leaves, the purple undersides. However, that houseplant is a total diva. This one is super easygoing. It's not going to give you any headaches whatsoever. The only downside to this houseplant in comparison to the Calathea is that this pricing and availability seems to be all over the place. Sometimes you'll be able to find a nice full pot like this for a decent price. Sometimes you're going to be lucky to get a 4-inch pot with just like maybe one plant in the pot for a little bit more of a hefty price tag. So a little bit more all over the place, hasn't settled in yet like some houseplants, but still an excellent houseplant if you do find it for a decent price. I highly recommend giving it a go because it's going to give you a lot of that same character that the Calathea ornata is going to give you without all of the brown edges and yellow leaves. Aglaonemas and Chinese evergreens across the board are known for being excellent, low light, low maintenance houseplants, and I think this one absolutely fits that bill. The care for this is very similar to most other Aglaonemas, more of the green Aglaonemas, as some of the more like red and pink and white varieties that are out there do require a little bit more sunlight, but this has those deeper green leaves. It doesn't have much of that bright, vibrant colors that some of those more colorful Aglaonemas might have. So this one's been thriving in like the interior of my space. I'm growing this like 8 to 10 feet away from my windows. I think it will push beyond that perfectly fine. I wouldn't grow this too close to the windows because these leaves are pretty deep in color. I could imagine they might get a little bit blown out or like a little bit more paler or chlorotic if they are too close to the window. So I would recommend pushing this into the medium, lower light areas of your home. Keep in mind, low light does not mean no light by any means. It just means, you know, starting to get a little further away from the window than most other houseplants would like. But this one's really going to give you some vibrant energy in that space. And it kind of translates the whole coloration of the leaves with the purple on the back side, shows that the light's kind of like bouncing off the purple through the leaves, and that's how it's able to just look so vibrant and gorgeous in lower light conditions. So really an excellent contender houseplant if you are looking to fill up some of the lower light spaces of your home. The watering for this houseplant is pretty straightforward as well, just like most other Aglaonemas. I'm watering mine like every 10 days or so. I have mine in a ceramic planter here, or a glazed ceramic planter, so it's holding on to moisture longer than it would inside like a terracotta planter, which this would do totally fine in terracotta, as these don't like to hold on to moisture that much. You would probably begin to lose a couple leaves on this pretty rapidly if you are overwatering it. You can see on my plant, I have like a yellow leaf right here, a leaf that's starting to turn yellow, half of it's green. And if I flip it around on one of the other plants, there's one going on here. This is just natural progression of this houseplant. Aglaonemas, they don't hold on to too many leaves at a time. They will get kind of like leggy and caney from the bottom, which I think adds a lot of character. I really appreciate it. But if you are just losing a leaf randomly every now and again, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you have like 2 or 3 leaves that are turning yellow at an alarming rate, you are possibly overwatering your houseplant. Maybe you're not giving it enough light, which in turn means the houseplant isn't processing the water enough, so it could be getting overwatered in that sense. So overwatering is basically the biggest issue you're going to come across with your Aglaonemas well before you have issues with the sunlight affecting the growth of the houseplant. So I would not water this houseplant more than once a week. Every 10 to 14 days is probably going to be the golden area for you. The soil, I'm using just a standard houseplant mix with a decent amount of perlite and orchid bark added. That is, I mean, I would say it's necessary, but the reason I'm adding it is because it helps in this glazed ceramic planter keep moisture at bay. If I just used a plain potting mix, this would probably not love staying as moist as it would stay. If you're working with like an unglazed ceramic planter or a terracotta planter that's pulling the moisture out from the soil, that might be less of an issue. Aglaonemas, as I said, they do not like sitting in moist or wet soil, so just nip that in the bud. Adding some kind of additives to your soil, whether it's perlite, pumice, orchid bark, charcoal, is probably going to be your best bet. Is it 100% necessary? No, but I'll let you use your best judgment depending on the planter that you are using. These are unfortunately moderately toxic to your pets, will your pet taking a nibble on this plant warrant a vet visit? No. But if you have a persistently nippy animal, I probably would not recommend keeping this in the vicinity of them. Although, in my experience, it's just very thick and leafy. Aglaonemas aren't usually ones that attract the pets. It's more of the very thin and leafy ones, which there are absolutely very thin and leafy Aglaonemas. This is just one of those more thicker, fuller leaved Aglaonemas. For the temperature, they'll do best probably in like 65 to 80 degrees. I wouldn't go too far below 60 degrees. I don't imagine these would really appreciate any drafts, but I don't think you're really gonna have any issues there. I think your home is gonna be probably sticking within that 60 to 80 degree mark most days. So I think this will do totally fine, standard household temperature. The humidity is also not really going to be an issue. Chinese evergreens are pretty low maintenance when it comes to the humidity. Of course, you know, these are all tropical houseplants. They would appreciate some extra humidity, but I wouldn't imagine this being a houseplant that's going to give you any issues. When the heat kicks on in the wintertime, these leaves are very thick, and like I said, Chinese evergreens are just, they're Chinese evergreens, you know what I mean? They're evergreen. They're always kicking, or they're ever purple, pink, and dark green, whatever colors. And for propagating these, as I showed you earlier, they do get kind of caney. You can see all of the stem here, and there's all these notches in the stem, which is where leaves were once, as that's where the petiole or where the leaf comes off of the plant. And then as this turns completely yellow or begins to brown, it'll pull off or fall off naturally. And each spot that is appearing with these little notches is where a leaf once was, and that's where the nodes are. The node is where this plant is going to root and perhaps put off new growth. So you just want to make sure that you have at least one, or more the merrier, node submerged in water or soil. If you're going to propagate this, you would just cut this with some clean shears or a knife in between two nodes. Wherever you cut this plant, it's going to regrow from the base of this, so you're not just going to be ruining the plant there before. It will regrow, and then you'll have the end piece with all of your leaves on it for you to propagate and regrow. So in theory, you could, you know, cut this back if it gets too long, and then in a month or two after that, you will have double the full plant. Of course, it's going to take time for the plant to regrow in comparison for the plant where you cut it to grow leaves, but with a lot of patience, you will have a really nice plant, which is fantastic for a houseplant like this, which, as I mentioned, is kind of a little bit more up in the air with its availability and its pricing, but a really gorgeous houseplant nonetheless. With the whole availability thing, if you're able to find it, I highly recommend it. There's also another Aglaonema very similar, the rotundum, which is usually a little bit more elusive. It's got much more of a heftier price tag. So I would push you in the direction towards the chocolate, because it's a hybrid, so it's easier to take care of. In most situations, hybrid plants are easier to take care of than species plants. So if you have one or the other on your wish list, I'm just kind of saying, I think I'd push you in the direction more of the chocolate. It's been a fantastic house plant. My home wouldn't be the same without it. Really reliable grower, really rewarding to grow too with just these gorgeous leaves. They are absolutely a work of art. So thank you guys so much for joining me today for how to care for Aglaonema chocolate, the Chinese evergreen chocolate. I don't think there's really a much better common name for this houseplant. If you don't already, you can follow me on Patreon for even more houseplant content. You can follow me at phillyfoliage on TikTok and Instagram. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.